Hey, everybody.
How you doing, right?
How you doing, Andy?
Good, thanks.
So here I am with Andy Hornby, photographer and content creator. How are things in the UK?
Not bad. It's getting cold.
Yeah, I bet.
Not quite snowing yet, but it is very cold.
It is now.
Brilliant.
Thanks, StreamYard.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
How's the
StreamYard.
US? Okay. How's things over there?
It's good. Well, I'm in LA, so in Los Angeles, cold for me is like 53 degrees at night and 62 to 64 during the day.
Nice.
And we got Ryan Shelley here, saying
Yeah, I know Ryan.
Stormtrooper
Ryan's a good lad. He's a photographer, local to me. He's good.
in the UK. Yeah, cool.
Good to see you, Ryan.
Which reminds me to ask everyone, welcome. Where are you watching from? Please let us know in the comments under the lives. And also, as a reminder, please give StreamYard permission to show your name and profile pics so I'll be able to credit you when you comment or ask questions. You'll see that under the live as a link, streamyard.com/Facebook. Just give the permissions.
Otherwise, you're just a person.
Right, such as this. But thank you for being here from Zambia. Wow.
Nice.
And then, yeah, Ryan is saying he's just down the road from you in Portsmouth.
Literally, yeah.
Cool.
I had coffee the other day.
And it looks like he's a photographer as well. I see the camera.
Nice
in his
big
hand.
long lens.
Yeah.
Jealous of that one.
And then we have someone from Cornwall.
Nice.
I think we got UK represent in the house.
Good.
Here, right?
Nice.
And we got Hannah from Belgrade, Serbia. Excellent. Thanks for being here,
Nice.
Hannah.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's what I love about these events. Quite the international attendance, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of, we have Annika from India. Thanks for being here, Annika.
Nice to see you.
Yeah. Great.
Wow, looks like we're across the world today. Brilliant.
Yeah, nice. Very nice.
Nice. So I'm just checking my note. I'm getting lots of notifications from Facebook.
Yeah. So everyone, where are you watching from? Let us know for those who are watching. And we have someone who says they are an upcoming photographer. Yeah.
Good stuff.
Well, you're in the right place.
Absolutely.
You know, the groups that we run are quite good. The Photoshop and Lightroom group, the Photoshop and Photography group, and the Andy Hornby Photography group. All excellent. And then we have Abdel, who follows you or me from Egypt. Nice.
Egypt, nice. Good stuff.
And someone from Southern Illinois.
Excellent.
So yeah, let me just remind real quick once again. So yeah, please give StreamYard permission to show your name and profile pics so I'll be able to credit you when you comment or ask questions. That way I can get you in the mix a little bit better, yeah. So let's see real quick. Here we go, some more people. Paula from New Zealand, great.
New Zealand, awesome.
Yeah, nice.
I mind to get out there for some landscape photography, nice.
So real quick, wanted to just give a shout out to StreamYard. StreamYard makes it possible for all these live wonderful events. And, you know, happy holidays from StreamYard.
Brilliant.
So nice. Okay, so it's been about 5 minutes. Let's jump into the mix. So let me showcase you, Andy. Why don't you let people know about yourself?
Hi, my name is Andy. Those of you who don't know me, I live in the UK, Portsmouth, which is on the south coast of England, pretty much in the center, right at the bottom of the country. And I am a professional wedding photographer. I do portrait photography and landscape photography. So I love my landscapes. And I've been doing photography for a very long time, albeit gaps in between the sort of film days of photography and then into digital photography once that kind of picked up. Because I like the aspect of photography of creating something. I like the idea of telling a story. But back in the film days, I didn't really like the idea of spending hours and hours processing. So when digital photography came into its own, I kind of started picking up bridge cameras, your smaller form cameras, and just taking random images and kind of remembering what it was like to be a photographer back in the film days. And then I started to look at how I could potentially create a business and make some money, as we all kind of do. I mean, I've worked until recently in other sectors. So I've worked in IT for a long time and other bits and pieces, and only recently gone full-time photographer. But having said that, I've been making money from photography for a very long time, and weddings in particular, where I've made a fairly good extra living, if you like. Well, I've been quite blessed over the years, and I've kind of
Can I jump in real quick?
Yeah,
though?
sure.
Just so one thing I wanted to ask, though, and I don't want to interrupt too much, but
No, it's cool.
wedding photography, that seems very demanding. A lot of people say it's quite intense and it's pretty stressful, right? Like the
Yeah,
feeling
it
that if
can
you
be. It
miss the
really
shot,
can. Yeah, it really can. But I like wedding photography, and I'm a people person. I like to meet people, and I've always liked weddings. For that reason alone, kind of draws me to weddings. But I find wedding photography is all photography. It's everything. If you ever want to learn all aspects of photography, weddings are a good place to start, because you've not only got your portrait photography, you've got your landscape, your interior design, your
food
food photography,
photography,
sometimes
yeah,
pet photography. I've done dogs. I've shot dogs at weddings.
great,
So if you ever wanted to get into photography on a sort of more general aspect, weddings are a very, very good place to start, because you're going to pick up a lot of techniques from very, very, sometimes hard areas of photography that you might
great,
never touch other times.
sure,
And they can be stressful, but you have to kind of not let it stress you out too much. I know Ryan in particular, who's in this at the moment. He's starting his journey in wedding photography, and it's you have to have fun. There's one thing I do, and it's what I tell everybody when because I teach wedding photography as well. The first thing I
excellent,
say to anyone if they're getting into wedding photography is as soon as you arrive at the wedding, no matter what point of the day that is, find the mother of the groom, because she has nothing else to do officially during that day. The mother of the bride, the father of the bride, and the father of the groom all have official duties. The mother of the groom doesn't, and she has nothing to do but really stress the wedding photographer out and call the wedding photographer out on everything and blame the wedding photographer for everything. If you can get the mother of the groom on board with the photography team, first thing, your day is going to run a whole lot smoother, honestly. So that's the first thing I kind of say. So that takes a lot of the stress away, because I kind of have a bit of fun with my wedding. But I'm lucky now. I'm at a point in my wedding photography career where I can kind of choose the weddings that I do. And, often or not, I can say, I probably, we may not be a good fit, or, love your wedding, love your style. I want to be involved in it. And I have a team. I don't generally go by myself anymore. At the very least, I would have an assistant, if not a second photographer and an assistant. And I have a good team behind me. In fact, my wife, up until we had a baby, was my assistant for a long time, and that made things a lot. Takes a lot of stress away if you have someone who can do the running around for you and stuff like that. So, so weddings I've been doing since 2007 or 8, I think. Good 12, 13 years, something like that by now.
great,
And I've done a fair few. I actually, in my first year, did a lot of weddings for free. I actually did a whole year of weddings for free to get a portfolio together. I used a lot of models locally. I bought a lot of wedding dresses myself to put on models so I could do, those sort of fake wedding shoots and really get a good portfolio together. And even at that point, my landscape photography hadn't really kicked off. So I was doing a lot of more portrait stuff when I started picking up DSLRs. I was running around doing other bits and pieces as well, but it's mainly portraits, working with models and doing model portfolios, that kind of stuff. Star Wars and back, I see that. And yeah, I do like a bit of Star Wars as well. that sometimes enters into my photography, believe it or not. I like to do a lot of composites with Star Wars. But then I think, for as far as my journey has gone, wedding photography is fantastic. Portrait photography is good. I do a lot of commercial work as well. I work with lots of local companies to either train and give tuition to their staff or go in and do their photography for them. And that's great, but that's all photography for someone else. And the passion of photography for me always comes down to my landscape photography. Always has done, always will do, I think. Since probably around 2012, 2013, maybe slightly earlier, 2011, maybe 2011, I started picking up my camera for me and actually going out and doing photography for me. And that was just a whole new ball game for me. And it opened up a world of storytelling that I hadn't really done before, because all the stories I was telling with my pictures was until that point always for someone else. It was either me getting models together and doing model portfolios for them, or getting models together and shooting images so I could put a portfolio together for wedding stuff or other bits and pieces. I did a lot of, obviously, you make a bit of money doing like family shoots, but for me, landscapes are my passion. It's where I can tell a story and really be, yeah, thanks, Ryan. Yeah, cheers, dude. Really be, photography for me. And I wanted to show, and if you can put that first picture up, I wanted to show you one of my first ever, and I found this the other day, funny enough, and I'll show in a second. I don't know if you can see. Can you see me as well, Andy? Is that right? Can you see me?
Yeah, you look great. Yep.
Yeah. So this is a makeshift ND filter. Now, if you know what ND filters are, they're neutral density filters. They are designed to fool your camera into thinking it's darker out, so you can do what's called long exposure photography. And this is what really, elevated my work. And sorry, Andy, if you can go back to that picture.
Yeah.
This is one of the first pictures I got with this ND filter. This is a friend of mine sat down for 30 seconds, not moving for 30 seconds. And, the image has, this is a long time ago, it has issues that I wouldn't necessarily have in my long exposure photography nowadays. But this image really, really elevated my work and made me decide to look at long exposures. And I'm going to show you some pictures in a minute that chronologically, for the last probably 4 or 5 years, in my landscape photographies and a few other bits as well.
Now, is that water?
That is water. Yeah, that is.
Yeah.
That's like a little pier. And
yeah, I
what
like
you
the way
see
it kind of is foggy too. It's like foggy water.
It gives, this, because this is welder's glass, so this has got a very greeny browny color cast to it, which you can obviously mess around in post. But these are back in the days where I wasn't doing too much in post. Most of it is straight from the camera. I do a lot of work nowadays in post, and you'll notice that in my edits. But the water you see down the bottom there, the smoky water is it does that where because of a long exposure, you have the water kind of goes milky. If I had a better sky, you'd probably see the clouds streak across the sky, and you'll see that in later works. But this kind of really epitomizes the beginning of my landscape kind of push, if you like, because my ethos in landscape photography is I struggle. I'm not a compositional photographer. I don't generally go out and see something that I can take a picture of and it be perfect first time. I get a lot of inspiration from Instagram, online, that kind of stuff. But then you fall into the category of, am I copying someone else? So my landscape photography kind of, cheers, Ian. My landscape photography kind of goes from getting inspiration from these online places and maybe offline places. And then how do I take that and make that my own? I shoot a lot of places that have been shot a lot by hundreds and thousands of other photographers. How do I make that me? How do I put my stamp on that? And long exposure photography is one of the easiest ways to do that. And a lot of photographers don't do it. They think it's a lot harder than it actually is. So you don't see it a lot. And for the last since this picture was in 2011. Since this, my landscape photography and my long exposure photography in particular has come along a long way. And I think that's where I kind of like my passion comes from, taking that one step further. Society does this. We stand on the shoulders of those that came before us, and we try and make it a little bit better for ourselves, and showcase, I showcase my work, and hopefully, and thankfully it has that emotional response from my viewers that they tend to like it, which is good. Which is why I tend to do the workshop we did was Game Changer there. Cheers, man. So I do a long exposure workshop. It's only a couple of hours, and I have a lot of people that workshop in particular fills up because it's such a good little workshop, and most of the theory behind long exposure, most people know and they get, and they pick it up really quickly. So that's kind of good. So Carolyn's actually on my academy, which is great. Hi, Carolyn, how you doing? And Carolyn, actually, funny enough, and my academy is like a mentorship. So this is the landscape academy that I kind of, during COVID, I had to come up with some way of getting my teachings online. This is actually taken during the day. This is in the morning. So Jay's, this is it's got a funny color cast to it because it's the glass that I've put in front of my camera has actually got a greeny brown color cast, but this was actually taken during the day. I see that from me. So long exposure photography and night photography is another one. If I just could come back to Carolyn, actually, because with the Landscape Academy being a mentorship, I actually come back when a member does a module in my Landscape Academy. At the end of it, they get a task. They get an assignment, which I then have to give feedback on. I actually do that as a video feedback, which is actually quite good. And Carolyn's work has come a long way. And Carolyn's been on my academy, I think, from near the beginning, so a good little bit of time. And Carolyn's work is just, every time I see a new assignment piece, it's just fantastic. Really is good. So I'm glad Carolyn's on that. Ian, the long exposures, I love long exposures, and certainly night photography is another passion of mine. I do a lot of work along the south coast, and when I do things like morning shoots, I'll actually get down there a lot earlier, and I'll actually get down there when it's freezing cold in the middle of the night, and I'll do star trails, or I'll do maybe the Milky Way if it's the right time of year and the weather's helping out. So from this picture actually was born, and I was given this actually by the guy who's in the picture. This was actually his. I should probably give it back to him, to be fair. His name's Jay. He actually works with my wife now, actually, in the hospital just down the road. So I should find him and probably give him that back. But I can't fit that on any of my lenses now. I don't even know what lens this fit back in the day. But I think it's a 52mm filter thread. I haven't got any 52mm lenses anymore, so I don't know. I won't be able to use it. But it'd be good fun to actually try and see if I can actually do anything with that. That'd be quite good. Compare it to that image. So my sort of landscape journey was born from that, and it was about 4.5, 5 years ago. I started looking at the potential of although I was doing weddings, and I do love weddings. I was starting to look at, could I potentially teach photography? Is it something I could potentially do? And the workshop side of my photography business kind of sprung up, and my now wife, when we got together 4.5 years ago, was really pushing me to really go at the workshops. Because again, I like to meet people, a lot of local people. I've actually, by this time, photography, in terms of meeting other photographers, you kind of go out and now and again you'll see, but it's a very lonely kind of it's a very solitary I don't even know what the word is. What would it be? A solitary kind of
endeavor, like a
exactly that. And often what it kind of has to be, because you unsociable hours. My wife doesn't want to come with me at 3 o'clock in the morning to go and do a Milky Way shoot. So meeting other photographers is happens now and again, but it's very, very, happen chances. If it happens, it kind of is 1 in a million almost. So I decided to put together a couple of free, what we call photo walks in the UK. I don't know whether you've got a similar thing in the US or anywhere else. A lot of the other local groups, they were kind of charging for these meetups. It's just like a meetup, and then just walk around the local area of wherever you're meeting up, and seeing what people can get. Can you get any images from this? And luckily enough, I have a coastline near me which is just full of pretty awesome things to shoot. And I met up, my first ever meetup was sort of middle of Southsea, and we kind of went down towards what we call Old Portsmouth, because I live in Portsmouth, and Old Portsmouth is kind of where like the dockyard and stuff is. And it was amazing, and everyone really loved it. And I actually had quite a few people on that. And from then onwards, I started then teaching. So I started actually doing workshops, taking a bit of cash, and that's actually come a long way. So if I start showing the video, these images are from. So these are first of all my landscape shots. I've got some at the end of this. I've got some portrait shots and some other bits and pieces.
And I'm going to go to full view so you can get a nice view of everything.
Yeah, sure. Excellent. So these are starting from maybe about 4 years ago, maybe 4.5 years ago, and they're pretty much in chronological order, give or take. Now, these first 3 or 4 shots were from obviously the local area. This is actually Southsea Castle, and the lake you see in front of you there, it's almost like a pond, but it looks quite big because the low angle I'm at actually isn't there anymore. And I've got some pictures a little bit later on where they've actually swapped it out for a very funky kind of fountain type thing, which actually lights up. And I'll show you that a little bit later on. So I'm going for a lot of reflection stuff. These are the monument down in Southsea. This is a naval monument from
Beautiful.
the World War I and II. But love these locations. This is a bit further down the coast. This is Brighton. So this is actually a long exposure shot. So this is what I was saying about the clouds in the background. You see, actually, the clouds are kind of going away from you. And I think this is about a minute exposure. So those clouds kind of wisp across the sky. The sea, you can just about see. That's a bit weird. Sea, you can just about see just on the left hand and the right hand side on the horizon there. And that is actually quite flat. But in this image, that wouldn't really make much difference. But so this is another one of it's probably one of my favorite. This is Spinnaker Tower. This was built a few years ago. And this is a long exposure shot. There's no clouds in the sky, but the sea is nice and flat. Unlike the picture you saw earlier on, there's actually more color in this image because the glass I'm using and the filter is a little bit better quality. It's not just a bit of welder's glass. So you actually retain the colors, and you can mess around with that. And actually the filter I've used here has got a slight blue color cast, which actually works in my favor because most of the stuff I use it for are seascapes and that kind of stuff and skies. So that's one of my favorite. Thanks, Andy. So this is starting with glass ball photography. This is another thing I teach as well. Is a bit of glass ball work. I'll run through these because there's a fair few of them.
Can I ask a question? Can we go back?
Yeah, absolutely.
One or two,
one or two images.
Yeah, like even in this one. So for these, do you just you have to line it up, or
you do?
There's a question. Do you ever cheat?
You have to kind of. Sorry, Andy, go on.
I was just going to say, do you just line it up and then you get that kind of framing, or do you ever cheat where you take a photo of the subject and then you kind of Photoshop it into the glow?
Yeah. I wish. No, I mean you can do that. Obviously, there's ways and means of making the image in the ball look a bit better, and you'll see that on the couple of images later on. I'll show in a second. But these are actually as shots. So the idea behind this is almost like a portrait shot rather than a landscape shot, because you actually focus on the image that's inside the glass ball, and the background, because you're so close to the glass ball, the background is going to kind of be out of focus anyway. But you don't want it too out of focus that you don't really have any relationship to it. Otherwise, it kind of doesn't make sense. You have to find that kind of balance. Quite tricky, but often the end result can be quite nice. And the other thing as well, if you're too high up or too low down on the angle, the horizon in the glass ball would be completely warped and out of shape, and again, wouldn't make any sense. So you kind of need to make sure that the image that's inside the glass ball makes sense. Does that make sense? That's kind of weird, but Yeah. So if we go
Absolutely.
back to this next one, not this one. This,
Someone asked, Andy, someone asked, do you ever flip the image?
yes, actually I do. I haven't in these, but I do. What I tend to do if I flip them is actually zoom into the glass ball and don't show too much of the outside, because obviously the real world, if you like, if that's upside down, it kind of doesn't make any sense. So yeah, so flipping it's kind of a good idea. But if you do that, zoom in definitely and get more of the glass ball than the outside. So this one here, Andy, this is an image I took. The image itself is as I took it, but I've actually done a little bit of color work on the hand, slightly different to the background. So I've kind of edited around the glass ball in the hand and a little bit of foreground to be a slightly different color than the background, just to give it something else, if that makes sense. So there are some, some ways of really, making that look a bit different. I think that was my last one for the glass ball, but there may be some others.
Beautiful.
Yeah, thanks.
And Ian says the color is amazing.
Wow, cheers. So this is actually an ice skating rink. If I show you that one, slightly better angle. This is in what was called our Guildhall Square in Portsmouth in town. Every year at Christmas they add the ice rink into the square, and you can't really get a shot now because actually nowadays they actually have a roof on it. You can't really get a shot, but the colours in the ice rink, they shine in the ice rink and in the Guildhall in the background actually worked really well. And I think I won an award for that somewhere or other. A few other bits and pieces. So this is, I don't know if you know this, Andrew. Do you know this? What this is?
Which aspect?
Where this location is. Do you know much of the South Coast?
This is in the UK.
Yeah.
Oh, it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous.
So this is on the Jurassic Coast in Dorset. So this is Durdle Door. So this is a place I went to a few weeks ago, actually. And you'll see right at the end of my landscape shots in a minute, I've actually got the sunrise through the door. You'll see currently the sun is rising over the kind of left-hand hill. So this is during summer. So in winter, as we're on the northern hemisphere, the sun kind of rises a bit further south. And I actually managed to get the sunrise in the door itself. And I'll show you that image a little bit later on. But this is a long exposure shot. This is the sea's nice and smooth. Can't remember how long this was, but it wouldn't have been too long, maybe 30 seconds or so. Another long exposure shot. This is funny enough. This is in London. This is the Millennium Bridge in London. So this is a bridge that at this time was height of summer. There are probably, 1,000 or 2 people going past or over this bridge every hour in summer. And doing a long exposure shot actually gets rid of people. So it's another aspect of long exposure work that I actually really like. Because if you go somewhere that's really busy, as long as people are moving and they're not too still, you actually see, if you can see over, like in the middle of the image, you see like blurry cloud
Slight ghost.
Yeah, so you see ghosting down the bottom there. That's where there's it's a 5-minute exposure, about 4 or 5 minutes. But because there's someone always kind of in that area or in that space, you will see a bit of ghosting, but around the outsides and up the edges,
nice.
No one at all.
Can you take a quick question?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Ian asks, roughly how long do you spend retouching an image?
Oh, that's a very difficult question, and I've spent, sometimes an image might just need a quick crop and maybe the shadows lifted a little bit. Other images I can spend hours, literally hours. I've spent days on something, come back to it, didn't like that, go back to it. And it depends what kind of work is needed. With landscape shots, the most I'd probably spend on a landscape shot is probably maybe about an hour. But again, it kind of depends what needs doing. Does things need moving sometimes? And I am a photographer that likes to create digital artwork as well. So I'm not one to maybe stop. If I go to a location that I might not be able to get back to, and I didn't like the sky potentially, and I know there's a lot of photographers out there that hate me for saying it, but I am a proponent for swapping a sky out or removing an object if it kind of doesn't work, to my composition very well. But in that case, I do understand there are photographers that say that's not now photography. That wasn't what you caught, and I get that. I understand that, but for me, it's about my end product. It's about me telling a story. If something needs moving to tell that story, then I tend to do that. So
Can
so
you
it can
take
take
another?
anywhere.
Can you take another quick question? Then?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then just as Facebook user, but they
Yep.
asked
Okay.
what ND did you use for your 5-minute exposure?
So for my 5-minute exposure, I used an ND filter from a manufacturer called Hyada, which is, I think, South Korean, I think. And funnily enough, and the reasons why I managed to get a 5-minute exposure during the daytime, because even a 10-stop kind of pushes maybe a few seconds, depending on the kind of light. It's actually a 13-stop filter. I got it as a 10-stop. I did a load of images with it, and they were coming out too dark, so I had a little play around, and I worked out I get somewhere between 13 and 14 stops of light out of that, which is actually really good, and helps me a lot. During the day when it's sunny, I can still get your 2 minutes, 3 minutes. That was wasn't a particularly sunny day, but it was bright enough where a 10-stop potentially wouldn't have gone far enough. Do I keep a file of skies to plug into Boring Sky? Yeah, I've actually got, fun enough, a sky replacement pack that I've actually not to plug too much of my stuff, but I do have a whole pack of 400 skies that over the last 3 or 4 years I've collected. Me and a couple of friends have put together a pack, which I do sell. I'm going to plug that quickly. I do sell that pack on my website.
Right, and I was going
Yeah.
to say, feel free to post the link in the comments on these videos.
Right. Okay.
afterward
Yeah.
as
I'll
well.
have to.
Yep.
Yeah. I might do that in a bit. Yeah. I might have to find the link for that.
Yep.
But yeah, so I do. Yeah, I absolutely do have 400 sky images, and that's growing. Week by week, I can take skies from some images and just hoard that into my folder of skies, and that folder just grows and grows and grows. So yeah,
Right.
definitely. So let me get back to my images, Andy, and I'll carry on for a little while because
Yep.
it's going to take me ages to go.
Looks great. Looks great.
A lot of images. Love London. I go to London a lot. I do a workshop in London. It's like a 6.5-hour workshop all around London. The main sort of epicenter, in and around St Paul's, which you see here. This is actually Clarence Pier in Portsmouth. This was a few years ago now. That Ferris wheel isn't there anymore. And this is another favourite location of mine. So this is obviously a shipwreck. It's just outside of town in Portsmouth because we're surrounded by water. It is actually an island. And this is a place that is really hard to get to. So I've been there a lot, and I take a lot of pictures there, and you'll see quite a few probably coming up. Yeah, so there's a few more back to London. And the reasons why it's such a good place to go is because not many people are getting there. I can then set the trend for the images that are coming out, and it's actually quite local to the shipwreck, and it means that I don't have to compete with too many photographers to get my images out. And the good thing about that place is that no matter what time of year I go and what time of day I go, I'm always going to get a different image because the sea level is always changing. It's never the same from 1 minute to the next. And yeah, Ryan, the crane too. Yeah, there's the crane down there as well that we love. And no matter like I say, no matter what time of year I go down, no matter what time of day, if the sea's doing something different and the sun's setting in a slightly different place, I'm always going to get a different image. Yeah. So again, back to Spinnaker Tower. This is a slightly not too long exposure, but the sea is smoothed out here, so it is a bit of a long exposure. And this is obviously a long exposure with light trail. Now, I use what is, well, it's just the 30-second rule, funnily enough. So the camera is set up in a way that it's always going to take an image for 30 seconds at this time of night. So this is kind of blue hour. And we've got a lot of ferries going in and out of the port where we are, and it kind of makes sense to pick these up. But a 30-second exposure, you're going to get that really nicely.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, real quick.
Yeah.
When it comes to your photo editing, do you prefer Lightroom or Adobe Camera Raw and Photoshop for enhancing, the saturation, the contrast, isolating, all that?
I mean, I use Lightroom almost extensively for landscapes, mainly for the import and export. Makes it so much easier, and the categorizing of images makes it really easy. If I have to take an image into Photoshop to do something, then it'll just be 1 or 2 images. I can process images a lot faster in Lightroom. I'm so used to the Lightroom interface. Camera Raw as well would be used potentially if the image was taken into Photoshop first. But having said that, the majority of the time I'm importing into Lightroom categorize and all that kind of stuff. I do a lot of, and I haven't got any to showcase, which I probably should have put some up, but I do a lot of time lapses. So batch editing in Lightroom is such a time saver. Now, I mean, nowadays I have the A7R4, which has got files coming out of that. Jays, I do have portraits. Wait around, I've got some portraits near the end of the video. But I have the A7R4, which is a 63 megapixels. Now, those images that are coming out there are huge. So when I'm taking 600 images for a 24-second end result time lapse and have to edit them, if I tried to edit them in Camera Raw in Photoshop, that's just not going to happen. So generally, yeah, Lightroom, Andrew. Lightroom is the way to go for my landscapes, unless, like I say, in particular, there's anything that needs to be taken out.
Great.
This is actually, if we looked back, which I'm not going to go back now because I wouldn't find my place. At the beginning where we saw the the castle in the background, and we had the little lake in the foreground. This is what it was replaced with. So this is quite nice when it's working, because it's been there for a couple of years now and it's generally not working too well. Excuse me. Cornwall. I go down to Cornwall. This is a bit further, or way further down the coast. This is St Michael's Mount, which is a lovely place to go. I did fun enough, I did a week trip around the UK in a camper van, and all these places I went to. This is Godrevy Lighthouse in Cornwall. I actually planned this shoot to get the sunset, if the weather was right, of course, through the top of the lighthouse. That's actually a lighthouse that the sun is setting through. And I managed to get into just the right place at the right time. And I planned that shoot 3 or 4 weeks ahead of time. I love planning my shoots like that. This is in Anglesey in Wales. Another nice location to go to. Yeah, Sky Ryan at the end of that was brilliant. This was the reason I did the week trek in the first place. This is a viaduct up in the Yorkshire Dales. This is kind of north of England. And this was a place I've always wanted to get to and not had the chance. And I got up there and the weather was terrible, but I managed to get some really nice images out of the place. And yeah, train going past, that was really, really nice, picturesque. And then this is Whitby. So this is 199 steps. This was actually the first time, yeah, another Sky Ryan. I was quite lucky on that week. This was the first time someone actually came up to me and said, I've seen you on YouTube. And that was such a heartwarming experience for me. And I was actually doing a vlog at the time, so I actually vlogged my whole trip. And I forgot the guy's name. The guy gave me his name. So now every time I see someone who comes up to me and says, I recognize you off YouTube, I make sure I write down their name and get it in my phone so I can give them a mention on my YouTube video. Yeah, that one exactly. Funny enough. When I went to Durdle Door last weekend, the guy there was the same. And I'd gone through the whole day doing all this video work. And right at the end of the day, I thought, I forgot to mention the guy. So I had to go on my phone, find him, and I had to redo the video. But it was all good. So yeah, so this is the 199 steps in Whitby. Nice sunset. And back to more Spinnaker Tower. You will see a lot of Spinnaker Tower through this. And it's... I'm not sure what that means, Lowell. What's that?
Yeah, I wasn't sure, but I thought maybe you might.
Okay. Is that?
It's on YouTube, so maybe it's random.
Okay. Back to Spinnaker Tower. I've got a lot of Spinnaker Tower work. Again, I'm actually down low. You can't really get down here unless it's low tide. This is actually over a wall and down the side of everything, which is quite funny. You can't really get down here unless it's low tide. And you have to be really careful because the tide comes in really quick. And I nearly got stuck. But again, another way of getting an angle on something that maybe not many people have, potentially. I like to put me in my images sometimes. This is South Parade Pier. I use these for thumbnails sometimes. It works quite well. And there's the sky here. This is the back to the shipwreck. And the crane. This is probably one of my better skies when I've been down there. And the sea was so still. The reflections were amazing. I do love that. Back to, again, more Spinnaker Tower and long exposures. So this was a shoot, and I wanted to mention this, actually. This was a shoot. This and the next picture, if I can just show you the next picture too, which I actually like a little bit better. This was a shoot that I predicted, funnily enough, about 8 months in advance. So I wanted to get the the moon. This is actually the moon you see here. I wanted to get the moon going through the sails of the Spinnaker Tower. And I used the PhotoPills app to tell me when that would actually be possible. And there's only one date available for the moon to go through at that certain elevation on that for me standing in a certain place. And yeah, 8 months in advance. So I like to. I'm one of those photographers that doesn't generally pick their camera up and go out and take 500 shots. I'd rather sometimes imagine one composition and actually research and try and get that one composition. And yeah, that was 8 months in the making, that picture. This is a local pier to where I actually live now. Thanks, Jace. Cheers, man. So again, reflections. This is actually a phone shot. This isn't even with my DSLR. This is with my phone. This is round the corner from where I used to work when I was working in IT. And after rainfall, it's actually beautiful. They light the place up. And the puddle that you see in front of this one, actually, it's actually quite a small puddle, but where my phone is actually at a very, very low angle, it makes the puddle look like a lake, and it's not really a lake at all. This is an image. This is London. I actually stayed in the penthouse suite of an Airbnb, and this was my view. Absolutely amazing. I did this again as a time lapse, which I don't have, but I did a few pictures as the sun was going down and the lights were coming on. More London stuff. This is Portsmouth. More Portsmouth. And this is Venice. So I went to Venice with what is now my wife. Thanks, Hannah. A few years ago. This is back to Portsmouth. Now this is actually in France. So this looks like St. Michael's Mount, but it's actually Mont Saint Michel over in France. So I went to France a few years ago, got up really, really early. This is in summertime. So to get a sunrise over here, I don't know what it's like anywhere else in the world during the summer, but the sun rises at about 3:30 in the morning, at the height of summer. So I had to get up really. I had like a 2-hour journey to this place because I wasn't staying anywhere near it. So I had to go quite a way. That's what we do as landscape photographers, I guess. From a bit further away again. It's a very long walk down there. You have to walk a long way. So this is the Queen Elizabeth actually going out of Portsmouth last year, I think. This was actually, let me go back one. This was a view from a hotel room. Funny enough, I stayed in a few years ago in London, just outside of the London helipad. Do love a good view from a window. Back down to South Sea, more London stuff. They're actually different pictures, these from a different track, but where I'll do it as a workshop, I like to go back to the same places. So, Jays, I actually use Sony. So I'm a Sony fanboy. I was Canon for 10 years until about 6 years ago when the A7R II came out. I was balancing up whether to go with the Canon, 5D Mark IV was just about to come out. But I had to think about where I make my money and where I'd save money. And the Sony had the better focus system. So for weddings, it made my wedding photography a little bit easier. So I went with the Sony. I'm going to skip forward a few of these. Yep, done a bit of, this is actually down the road from Durdle Door. This is down by Lulworth Cove. So I do a bit of night photography. Someone mentioned that earlier, I think. More reflection stuff, like reflections. Spinnaker Tower from underneath. Long time ago that was. So this, another reflection shot. I was driving home from work, realised that there'd been a rainfall, and I'd had an idea of a few shots I wanted to get. And this is actually a phone shot. So this is actually done from my phone, very low angle, with a puddle, and then Lightroom Mobile. I had a good shout with that. It was really good. Yeah, a few sunsets, sunset again. All around Portsmouth. I'm going to speed some of these up because I know we're pushing the time. This is back to Cornwall. This is a place I stayed in. This is I can't remember the name of this. Some castle, but it's been converted into a hotel. Yeah, that's that Godrevy lighthouse, but from a different angle on a different day, obviously. Back to Cam's Hall. This was one of my best shots I got looking over at Spinnaker Tower. And then we've got some more Spinnaker Tower stuff. South Sea. So this is a shot I took again on my phone, fun enough. And I really like this shot. I thought it was really nice. I love the sun setting just in the background. I think I've caught it just right. South Sea. This is other places. South Sea again. This is actually down near the dockyard. So this is what's called HMS Warrior. This is a dockyard. It's just to the right-hand side here where the naval base is. This is one of the old warships from back in the day. Back to Durdle Door, sunrise. Back to Portsmouth, more sunsets. So I don't know why this is in here, actually. I'll put this in here, but this is actually the Cam's Hall estate you saw earlier on with the reflections. I did a bit of car work up there with this VW. Actually worked pretty well. This took a bit of time. The lights you see and stuff like that all added after the fact. Even the headlights weren't on. I spent probably an hour or two on this, I think, potentially. I even think that's a sky swap as well, if I remember rightly. So there's more South Sea stuff. So this is Corfe Castle a few months ago. There's some nice work on this. This is actually so this is an image that gets people. I've actually done a video of how I edited this. So this didn't have any fog, and I wanted fog, so I added fog in various different layers. I think this is the image I worked on, Andy, when we did our thing last time. So people either like this or they hate it, and that's fine.
Yeah, I remember the haze.
Yeah. So I really like this image. I don't know if I showed the one afterwards. No, I didn't have it, but more Portsmouth. This is Stonehenge. I managed to get a really, really good sunrise at Stonehenge. That was pretty good. You know, another 1 in a million. Everything was working right. The weather was perfect. Excuse me. It's just one of the things that on the way, you know, in the car on the way down there, you're thinking the sky looks a bit cloudy. Oh my God, am I going to get anything to get there? And all of a sudden things change. And it actually turned out pretty well. And that's just after the sun rose. This is Jed, a good friend of mine. Back to London. Some different angles of different places. I'll skip through a few of these. This was a few weeks ago. I did a workshop. This was on a beginner workshop, actually, with like a one-to-one beginner workshop. A little bit further down the coast from where we are at the moment. But yeah, I like some of these shots. These are just some snapshots almost that I got teaching, you know, things about like background blur and that kind of stuff and how you can tell a story, that kind of bits and pieces. But normally you probably wouldn't blur the background. Let me go back of this kind of shot normally, but it kind of made sense to what I was teaching at the time. And a few other bits and pieces. So last weekend I went to Durdle Door, and these are the shots I got from Durdle Door. I was telling you, Andy, that I got a sunrise. Did I not have it? Oh, I didn't put it in there. After all that last shot, let me go back one.
It was you in Star Wars, right? Weren't you in Star Wars?
Yeah, I'll show you in a second. This shot here, I had another image after that one that I didn't put in the video, funny enough, and the sun was rising through the door. There you go. So we just have to imagine it. Use our imagination for a second that the sun was clipping through the little door there. And then I come on to light painting. So I do a little bit of light painting stuff, and this was a few years ago with my light. What you saw was lightsabers, not really lightsabers. It's like a light wand. Get various different things. I'm gonna let this just roll through and let people just see what you can do with a bit of light.
So can you go back a couple?
Yeah, sure.
One more.
Maybe there.
Right there. So like that is it. The next one to the right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's there.
There we go. Yeah. So for something like that, so do you have someone standing out there and then they're just
That's
kind of
me. Yeah, I am all by myself, lonesome. 10-second timer. Well, actually, I think I've actually got an off-camera shutter release that's got this.
So your camera's on a tripod,
yeah,
and then you are kind of like waving two
yeah,
hands.
so
or one
waving various
hand?
different things. I've got light ones. It's in this case, it's actually flashing as well. So as I do the wavy motions of an orb,
Nice.
you can see the lines where it's flashing on and off. And I don't know if you can see closely. I mean, you wear black clothes and stuff like that, you know, as dark as you possibly can, so you don't show up. Because where you're not moving, the light from the from the light one can light you too. And you can just see my trainers at the bottom. Well, I've got like
It's subtle though. It's
yeah,
subtle.
very subtle. I've done a little bit of work, but not too much. But now and again, you'll see them. There are other things that you can do where you just don't see yourself at all. So, like this one, I actually on the same night as the image you saw before, I went to this place, which is down in Southsea. It's got a little like pond because I wanted to try and find reflection that worked. So I ended up taking my now wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, back down there to do some light painting with a model.
Can we go back just a couple?
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
Another question, sorry.
Let's go back to
one more.
Back one more. To the car.
So. Or maybe forward. Yeah, forward.
Car?
That one, yeah. The first car.
Yeah, let me go back again. So it's on the timeline. It's really difficult. Yeah.
There we go. So for that effect, how do you get that effect? Do you have to go up and down vertically and then you just kind of walk slowly, or do you run?
So yeah, with this one actually, I had someone with me, but not to do any camera work. Actually, right at the end, actually flip my switch on my car so the lights come on. Funny enough, because you don't want the lights on all the time. But when I lock my car, the headlights at the bottom there, they flash on very quickly, and the side lights flash on really quickly. So what I'm doing there is I'm actually holding the light wand and I'm walking towards the car, making bigger motions by the time I get to the car. Then I spin around, make the big motions into smaller motions going backwards. And it's about a 6 or 7 second exposure. And then right at the end, I'll say to the guy, right, hit the button. And then the lights on the car come on.
Cool.
And it actually works very well. Cool. Yeah, it's a good effect if you get it right. If you get the ambient light working for you too, because I mean, you could do this anywhere and just have it, with a black backdrop. But I think having a bit of the landscape kind of leans towards a better kind of look. And yeah, so I take my wife, and I'm stood behind my wife, waving the wand around in various different aspects.
It's very nice with the reflection in the water.
Yeah, it works really well with that reflection. Does really lend itself. And things like this as well. I mean, I think I edited my feet out this one because my feet don't move. But excuse me, where you have a lot of surfaces that are bouncing light back off of this light, you can actually see me and my feet in this image. I think I've edited that out. Yeah, this one. This is another way of getting your ambient exposure set in camera and then lighting your subject. It's a bit like if you're adding any external light to a model, you would get your ambient exposure first. So you'd expose for the background in Spinnaker Tower. Otherwise, you're either going to overexpose it or underexpose it and it not make any sense. So this is an environmental portrait shot, really, first and foremost. So very tricky. And funny enough, this was right on the seafront. There's a pub behind me over our right shoulder where people are actually eating their meals and looking out the window and laughing. And it's quite a funny experience. And I actually vlogged this as well. So I've got 2 cameras set up doing video and me running around with this light wand, crazy stuff. But I do like a good image if I get it right.
That's great series.
And these worked really well. This is in the forts down in Old Portsmouth. There's like these encasement forts behind, or what you see on the ground behind my wife there is actually where you would have had a cannon, 200 or 300 years ago, shooting out through into the Solent. If anyone came to bother us, Spanish, I suppose, back in those days, I don't know. Various different exposures and then some other bits and pieces. I do like to get a little bit creative sometimes, and obviously with wire wall spinning, it's the same kind of concept in various different locations. Also, I've done a bit of drone shots over the years, which have all landed themselves in magazines and stuff like that. Fun enough, it's quite good. My drone, I don't really do drone much anymore. I'm a drone pilot, but I don't have a drone. And on to some portraits. So these are some recent shots because I don't have anything from more than a couple of years ago on the drives I have out. They're all locked away somewhere. So these are fairly recent shots, either on location or in studio. Thanks, Jace. So this is Charlotte. This, if I go back, sorry, let me go back one. So Charlotte is actually a CEO of a production company about 30, 40 miles down the coast. I actually do quite a bit of commercial work for, and I've started to do a bit of video work for them. Actually, I've done some documentary stuff recently, which will be out next year, which is quite good. And I love working with them. They've got a studio as well, so these were done in their studio. This was actually in the High Street down in Fareham, which is just around the corner from where I live. This is Miss Nancy, I work with quite a bit. And we've done a fair amount of shoots. In fact, this shoot was one of our first shoots I did about 3 or 4 years, maybe 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago. And I actually turned up with this whole production. Let me go back one. This whole, I had lots of people. My wife was there with lights. I had other people there with lights. I had people there doing video because I've vlogged it as well. And I had like 3 or 4 people with me. I got down there and didn't have an SD card in my camera. So I started taking pictures. And funnily enough, with the Sony, you can actually see the last picture you took. It just gives you a JPEG, but you don't actually have a card to write to. So I had to run around and buy a card from the local shop. Looked a bit silly, but move on from those. So this is Southsea. This is, I love going down here. It's got lots of graffiti, really, really nice to do workshops, that kind of stuff. And these were taken, I think, on a workshop, a few years ago. I love doing the kind of location shots which get you, something more creative than just a blank canvas in a studio potentially. These shots made it into magazine, I think. We shot these 4 magazines, and some more environmental shots. This was shot down in Southsea. High speed sync. Do you have any? Some of those ones you saw back there, Jess. Let me go back to my first shoot in Fareham. Yeah, so this shoot here, these are all shot with my 600 watt on high speed sync. So there is actually, the sun is setting in the background. So I'm shooting into the sun. You can see the rim light on the arm and the hair there. So I'm using high speed sync here, probably at, I don't know, shutter speeds anywhere from 1,000 up to maybe 4,000 potentially. So yeah, these are all high speed sync. Let's go back to, yeah, this we call this the wet look shoot. There's actually shot in the model's living room. Actually, they're all mainly headshots, but they made it into magazine, which is good. This was down in those encasements. So let's go. Thanks, Jace. Let me just go back one. So this one here, this background here is where you saw my wife when I did the light painting inside this encasement here. So all up and around the same kind of area. Just lends itself some really nice photography. Definitely portraits work really well. I think I showcased some of these the other day, but yeah, these work really well. I actually did this in a video to show how to get backgrounds blurry out, background blur sort. So these were an even more recent shoot. This is a shoot I did in the center of town. Funny enough, it's quite a busy day. We managed to get shots with no one in the background. I think I actually asked people to move off the steps here so I get some pictures on the steps. But this was with a model I found on Purple Port a little while ago. Just get some nice creative shots. These aren't high-speed sync, actually. These were with just one speed light. So there was enough ambient light to light the model and other bits and pieces, but just a bit of fill-in light in the front. I mean, you see some shadow under the chin there. I'm actually holding, or I've got someone to hold my speed light off camera. And that's all this took. This whole shoot was with one speed light. It's pretty awesome. And now some wedding shots. We're kind of getting to the end. There's not too many wedding shots, but just to showcase us, a few bits and pieces that I've done over the years. These are probably over the last 5 or 6 years. Sometimes I get a bit creative. So this is the same model. So this was actually a shot I took on a wedding workshop. So I did in the same location you saw with the reflections before, which actually lends itself to some quite nice wedding shots. This was with this couple. They're actually a couple. They're getting married next year, I think. And I've done lots of work with Miss Nancy. That's actually one of my wedding dresses that I own, that she wears for my wedding workshops, funny enough. And I've got a couple of people with me doing getting their pictures as well, which is quite good. I love to teach, and teaching weddings is pretty amazing. Again, more with Miss Nancy. This is actual wedding shot, probably one of my favorite that I've ever got. This is actually my cousin. I did this shot This was about 2 or 3 years ago, so I shot their wedding, and probably one of my favourite wedding shots I think I've ever taken. Another good friend of mine, Jay there. I don't know if Jay's watching, but Jay's in my group. This was their wedding, and I love this shot as well. This is in Hendon, so this is the River Thames, a bit further out of London, not actually in London. And another recent one. This was pretty heavily photoshopped, really. This is a combination. This is more of a composite than anything else, but I kind of like the idea. The exposure for them was different to the background and the trees, and then obviously the sky's been added slightly separately. But at first sight, you'd never really notice it, and it worked really well. I think didn't spend too long on it. This is actually another. Actually, this is a composite. Funnily enough, this is actually the background was actually the hotel and the road, and didn't look too good. But I love the pose. I love the almost, the kind of intimacy that you see in the couple there. And I just really wanted to make that something a little bit more special. And the background at the time, didn't. And with images like this, you can't recreate that. It just doesn't work. Going through this, some more images. I love that. That's my cousin again on the swing that she had. And that's kind of it. Got through it, Andy.
That's wonderful. Wonderful.
Lots and lots of stuff there. So you see, I've got lots and lots of landscape stuff. That's my passion. But obviously, I wanted to put in a few bits and pieces there that weren't just landscapes.
Well, it's some wonderful photos, all different kinds of subject and theme. So
yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Yeah, very nice. So, any questions for people watching?
Yeah,
I know they ask during, but ask.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, maybe a question or two, hopefully.
And then just to give a shout out. So, in general, you can find Andy on YouTube, where I just believe you passed 22,000 subscribers.
22 and a half now, give or take.
Yeah, very nice. So,
YouTube,
there. Andy Hornby photos. Yeah.
I think you can leave the C out. I don't know. I've never used this. Does that still work with the C?
It's just that's what it comes up when you grab the URL. Okay. So,
yeah, fair enough.
But I think if you were to just type, go to YouTube and type in Andy Hornby photography, right?
Yeah, you'd find me. There is another Andy Hornby on there. He's a bodybuilder. That's not me.
And then we're talking about your skies and store. If I can also post this link later.
Yeah, absolutely.
bit.ly Andy Hornby Photography Store. Then you can then get access to Andy's wonderful. You have like skies. I think you have some plugins or presets, things like that. Yeah.
And the Landscape Photography Academy, if anyone's interested, potentially.
And then Ryan asks, where would you like to shoot that you have not managed to yet? What's your dream?
There's a few places. I want to get to Iceland. Get the Northern Lights, the Aurora Borealis would be a dream location for me, I think. Definitely. Yeah.
Jay says, I'm definitely going to follow you, Andy.
Cheers, dude. Yeah, absolutely. You can find me all over the place. YouTube is a good one. It'd be fantastic.
YouTube.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Wonderful.
So, awesome.
Let's see. It might be a little bit more. So Ryan says, I'm in.
Cheers, dude. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, this is great. Great.
Yeah.
So once again, do follow Andy and Andy Hornby Photography on YouTube.
Yeah, definitely. It's for most of the places you find me, Facebook, Instagram, Andy Hornby Photos, no matter where you go. I'll try to keep it consistent throughout the board, but you'll find me on those kind of things.
Right, and then you run the Andy Hornby Photography group as well.
Yeah. I've got a workshop group on Facebook.
And Andy is a wonderful admin for my Photoshop and Photography group and the Photoshop and Lightroom group.
Love that place.
And I myself am also trying to build up my YouTube a bit so I can get that community tab.
Definitely be sharing your. Definitely. Look at that.
Digital artist Andrew Kavanagh on YouTube. So do a search for me there. Digital artist Andrew Kavanagh.
Yeah.
But this is wonderful. Really great to see your work.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, man. This is brilliant.
Very nice, very beautiful work.
I'm glad people recognize the Star Wars stuff. I like that.
Of course. So, wonderful range of your work. Fantastic.
No, it's brilliant. I love doing this kind of stuff. I love it. It's brilliant. Thanks for having me.
Let's see. I've got one comment.
Thank you, everyone. I'm going to put my before I break. I'm going to put this away.
Yeah. So
This will be
Hannah says, thank you for a very pleasant evening.
oh, awesome. No, thank you for being here. Thanks.
So yeah, thanks everyone for attending. And yeah, besides
Cheers, guys.
these live interviews, we'll also be doing a series of live video events. I believe Eric Joseph is coming up on one about printing next Friday. So
Cool.
don't forget to join. Let's see if I have a banner for it. Make sure you join the Photoshop and Lightroom group, and the Photoshop and photography group, and the Andy Hornby photography group. And in general, for all of those groups, always make sure that you look for the top pinned posts. The top pinned post is where all the most important notifications are. If we're doing a live, if there's special news, special events, special deals, contests. So we do have contests when we pass certain milestones as well.
We've got one coming up soon, haven't we?
Yeah, we were supposed to have one when we passed 250, but we're now on our way to 260.
It's going so quick.
So
quick.
Might have to have a very big contest
we'll be
celebration.
We'll be 300,000 before we do that.
Well, that when we get to 300,000, might have to have a very big celebration contest. Yeah,
definitely.
So yeah, once again, thank you so much, Andy, and thanks everyone for attending.
Thanks, Andrew.
And as usual, I will post the recording link to all the various groups.
Yeah, I'll post it. And Andrew's going to give me the recording as well, and I'll post that too.
Yeah, put up on your YouTube.
Nice.
So thanks everyone for being here.
Cheers, guys.
Have a wonderful week.